Okay, now you've seen a couple different ways to build out a mortgage schedule. What we're going to do now is make it a little bit more realistic. We're going to take it to actually monthly payments on a mortgage. We're going to assume the mortgage amount is $100,000, more like buying a starter home. And we're going to model this out over all 15 years of a loan. All right, so it's going to be a lot bigger model, but the basic ideas are not going to change at all. We're also going to deal with thinking about how to translate an annual interest rate of 4.3% to a monthly interest rate. So let's start there. The most basic way to make that translation is when the interest rate is an APR, or an annual percentage rate. And all we have to do in this case, we go up to our monthly rate, is we take our discount rate, whatever it is, that annual rate, and divide by 12. In this model, you're going to see that as we go from yearly to monthly, we're going to use the number 12 in our formulas a lot. And it's true that 12 is kind of a hard-coded number in these formulas. It's okay, though, because 12 is a constant. The number of months in a year does not change. It will never change as your model changes. So it's okay to have a number like 12 built into our formulas. So in this case, we see that the monthly rate is about 35, almost 36 basis points. All right, our payment here, we want to just capture our payment easily up front. So we're going to use our payment function like we did in the previous tabs. So we're going to use our rate. Again, importantly, we're going to use our monthly rate. We also now need, for the number of periods, we can't use 15 periods. Because if we use 15 periods, we're not reflecting that it's monthly. So we have to take that 15 and multiply it by 12. And finally, we have to use our initial balance, same as we always do. Make sure we put the negative out front. And we see that our payment is $754.81 per month. All right, with these, we can now go build out our mortgage schedule. As before, I'm going to use the sequence function. Now we need to use sequence with 180 months, 15 times 12, rather than 15 years. Our beginning balance is equal to our $100,000. Our interest expense, again, however much we owe times the interest rate, making sure we use that monthly interest rate here. Our payments, we already calculated that, so we can just reference that cell, being sure to lock it. And our ending balance, we calculate the same way as before. Beginning plus our interest expense minus our payments gives us our ending balance. Now we can copy that over to our beginning balance for the next cell, or rather set that cell equals, right? We're going to set just starting balance of period 2 is equal to the ending balance of period 1. Our interest expense, payments, and ending balance, otherwise we can calculate the same way. So we copy and paste those. At this point, we can take this whole row 2, copy that, and now we can paste down our entire spreadsheet, and we should see that we get that 0 balance by the time we get to the end of month 180, and that is what we see. Here you'll notice that it actually shows up as red and in parentheses. What that means is it's a negative 0. And it's a little weird to think about, but essentially it's not exactly 0, and that's because of rounding that happens in Excel. So if I actually increase my number of decimals here, I'm using the shortcut key Alt-H and then close parenthesis to add digits. And you see that we can go out quite a ways. And then we finally see that there's some rounding error in Excel. That's okay. We'll talk in later periods kind of how we can clean that up to make it look more visually appealing. But for right now, we don't need to worry about if yours shows up as negative or positive just a little bit, that's going to be okay. All right, so if we go back up, now we can do our last 2 pieces of the exercise. We can calculate our total interest expense to make sure we have everything correct. That looks good. And our number of payments, here we can use the count function. So we're just going to count how many payments we have. And it tells us we do have 180 payments. All right, so that we've built out the schedule, assuming, again, that like we started at the beginning, that we're using an APR, or an annual percentage rate, is that 4.3%.